The folder hit my face before I even closed the front door. I felt the sharp corner catch my cheekbone, heard the papers scatter like broken promises across the hardwood floor. My resume, my references, all the carefully prepared documents I'd spent 3 nights perfecting, now littering the entryway like trash. Another one. My sister Madison's voice dripped with theatrical disgust. How does someone fail 6 interviews in 2 months, Lauren? How is that even possible? I touched my face where the folder had struck. No blood, just the hot sting of humiliation blooming across my skin. Through the archway, I could see them all gathered in the living room like a tribunal I hadn't agreed to face. Mom perched on the cream sofa, Dad in his leather chair, and Madison draped across the love seat like she owned the entire house, which, given how they treated her versus me, she might as well have. I didn't fail, I said quietly, bending to gather the scattered pages. They said they'd call back. The laughter started with Madison, high and cruel. Then Mom joined in with her delicate, dismissive tinkle. Dad didn't laugh, but the smirk on his face cut deeper than any sound. They always say that, sweetheart, Mom said, examining her manicured nails. It's what they tell people they don't want. Did you really think a marketing firm like Thornfield would hire someone with your presentation? My presentation. That was Mom's polite way of saying everything about me was wrong. My clothes weren't expensive enough, my hair wasn't styled right, my confidence wasn't magnetic like Madison's. Never mind that I'd graduated summa cum laude while Madison barely scraped through community college. Never mind that I'd built an entire mock campaign that the interviewer had called innovative. Maybe you should aim lower, Dad suggested, not looking up from his phone. There's a call center hiring. They take anyone. David, don't be cruel, Mom said, but she was smiling. Though he has a point, Lauren. You need to be realistic about your capabilities. I knelt there on the floor, hands full of papers, and felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't new. This scene had played out in variations my entire life. Madison the golden child, beautiful and charming and utterly mediocre. Me, the disappointment, the one they kept around like a houseplant they forgot to water but felt too guilty to throw away. Before I go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I like to know how far my stories are reaching, and a like and subscribe means a lot to small channels like ours and will keep these stories coming. Now let's continue. I had 3 callbacks this week, I said, standing slowly. 3 companies that seemed genuinely interested. Interested in what? Your sad little portfolio. Madison swung her legs off the love seat. Face it, you're not cut out for the corporate world. You don't have the looks, the charm, or the connections. I got my position at Turner & Associates because I know how to work a room. You can barely work up the courage to speak. The worst part was the kernel of truth in her words. I wasn't like them. I didn't glide through life on charm and manipulation. I actually worked, actually studied, actually cared about doing things right. Maybe that's not a weakness, I said. Keep telling yourself that. Madison stood, smoothing her designer dress. I'm meeting friends for dinner. Try not to embarrass Mom and Dad with any more rejection emails, okay? She brushed past me, and I caught the scent of her expensive perfume, the kind I could never afford on my non-existent salary. The front door clicked shut behind her with a soft, final sound. Lauren. Mom's voice had that warning tone. Don't sulk. It's unattractive. I looked at my parents, really looked at them. When had they become strangers? Or had they always been this way, and I'd just been too desperate for their approval to notice? I'm going to my room, I said. To do what? Apply to more jobs you won't get. Dad finally glanced up. You're 24 years old, living under our roof rent-free. At some point you need to contribute or move on. Move on. With what money? They'd promised to help me after college, then gave every opportunity to Madison instead. The apartment fund became Madison's car. The job connection through Dad's friend became Madison's internship. I'd been left with scraps and told to be grateful. I climbed the stairs to my room, that cold feeling in my chest spreading like frost through my veins. Inside, I closed the door and leaned against it, finally letting the tears come. Through my window, I could see the driveway, the manicured lawn, the neighborhood that screamed old money and older secrets. This house had never been my home. I'd just been too afraid to admit it. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, assumed it was another automated rejection, but something made me look. The message was simple, just 4 words that made my blood run cold. "We need to talk. Tonight." Before I could process it, headlights swept across my window. Car was pulling into our driveway. Not just any car. A black Rolls-Royce that probably cost more than our house. And someone was getting out. Someone walking toward our front door with the kind of purpose that said this wasn't a social call. The doorbell rang, echoing through the house like a gunshot. I pressed my face against the window, trying to see who had emerged from that impossibly expensive car. From my angle, I could only make out a tall figure in a dark suit, but the way they carried themselves spoke of absolute authority. Downstairs, I heard the shuffle of movement, Mom's surprised gasp, Dad's confused murmur. Then the voice that came through our door made my heart stop. "Good evening. My name is Alexander Cross. I'm here to speak with Lauren Carter." Alexander Cross. The Alexander Cross, CEO of Cross Enterprises, the largest tech conglomerate in the country. The man whose face graced Forbes covers and whose net worth had more zeros than I could count. And he was standing in my parents' foyer asking for me. I couldn't move. My legs had turned to stone. "I'm sorry," I heard Dad say, his voice taking on that syrupy tone he used with important people. "There must be some mistake. Our daughter Lauren, she's not exactly." "Not exactly what?" Alexander's voice was silk over steel. The silence that followed was delicious. I forced myself to move, opening my bedroom door just enough to hear better. The voices drifted up from below with crystal clarity. "Mr. Cross, please come in," Mom was saying, and I could picture her smoothing her hair, straightening her posture. "Can I offer you something to drink? We're such admirers of your work. Our daughter Madison actually works in corporate development, perhaps you know her. Madison Carter at Turner & Associates." "I'm not here about Madison." Each word was precise, final. "I'm here about Lauren. Is she home?" "She's upstairs," Dad said, and I could hear the confusion, the curiosity, the first whisper of fear in his voice. "But I don't understand. How do you know our Lauren?" "Her application came across my desk this morning, along with the most innovative marketing proposal I've seen in 15 years. My breath caught. The Thornfield interview. I'd been so nervous, so convinced I'd fumbled every answer, that when they'd asked me to submit a creative pitch for their biggest client, I'd stayed up all night working on it. I'd poured everything into that proposal, every ignored idea, every dismissed suggestion, every ounce of creativity my family had told me to suppress. I'd submitted it at 4 a.m. and tried not to hope. Marketing proposal. Mom's voice had gone shrill. "Lauren did that." "She did. Thornfield's senior director is a friend. He forwarded it to me because the client in question is actually one of my subsidiaries. Miss Carter solved a problem my entire team has been struggling with for 6 months. In one night. With resources I can only assume were minimal." I heard footsteps, someone pacing. "I came here personally because I want to offer Lauren a position, not an entry-level role. I'm talking about senior strategist, reporting directly to me, with a salary that I believe will be more than fair." The silence was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. "How much?" Dad asked finally. $250,000 to start. Plus benefits, stock options, and performance bonuses that could double that within a year. I grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. That was more money than both my parents made combined. More money than I'd ever imagined earning in my entire life, let alone as a starting salary. That's very generous," Mom stammered. "But surely there are more experienced candidates. Lauren just graduated, she has no real-world experience. She's never even held a proper job." "She hasn't held a job because people like you convinced her she wasn't good enough." Alexander's voice had gone cold. "I've read her academic records. I've seen her portfolio. I've spoken to 3 of her professors, all of whom said she was the most talented student they'd taught in decades. The only thing holding Lauren back has been the people who should have been lifting her up. The words hit like physical blows. I could imagine my parents' faces, the shock, the shame they'd never admit to feeling. Now, Alexander continued, I'd like to speak with Lauren. In private, if you don't mind. Of course, Dad said quickly. Lauren, come down here. I took a breath, wiped my eyes, and started down the stairs. My legs shook with each step. As I descended, I finally saw him. Alexander Cross was younger than I'd expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to catalog everything in an instant. He was looking up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. When our eyes met, something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe. Or surprise. Miss Carter, he said, and his voice softened slightly. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Mr. Cross. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I don't understand. Why are you here? Because talent like yours shouldn't be wasted. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. My proposal, printed on expensive paper, with notes in the margins in sharp, precise handwriting. This is extraordinary work. Work that deserves to be seen, valued, and compensated appropriately. He held out the folder, and I saw my own ideas staring back at me, but transformed. He hadn't just read them. He'd analyzed them, built on them, seen their potential. I want you to start Monday, he said. I'll send a car at 8. Your office will be ready, your team briefed. All you have to do is say yes. Behind him, I could see my parents' faces. Mom's mouth hanging slightly open. Dad's expression cycling through confusion and something that might have been respect. For the first time in my life, they were seeing me as something other than their disappointing daughter. I started, then stopped, because I just noticed something. On Alexander's left hand, he wore a ring. A signet ring with a crest I recognized from somewhere, though I couldn't place where. And when he shifted, I caught sight of something else. A thin white scar running along his jawline, partially hidden by his collar. A scar I'd seen before. But that was impossible. I'd never met this man in my life. Lauren, he prompted gently. Yes, I heard myself say. Yes, I'll take the job. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Excellent. I'll have contracts sent over tonight. We have a lot of work to do. He turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Carter. Thank you for your hospitality. He walked toward the door, and I thought that was it, the surreal encounter over. But at the threshold, he paused and looked back at me. One more thing, Lauren. Pack a bag. The position requires relocation. There's a penthouse apartment waiting for you downtown, fully furnished. You can move in tonight if you'd like. Tonight. Gasped. Unless there's a reason she should stay. Alexander's gaze was challenging now, daring them to argue, to object, to try to keep me here in this house that had never felt like home. They said nothing. Then it's settled. Alexander handed me a business card. This is my personal number. Call me when you're ready, and I'll send the car. He left, the door closing behind him with a soft click. The Rolls-Royce pulled away, its taillights disappearing into the evening. I stood in the foyer, holding the business card, feeling my parents' eyes on me. Lauren, Dad started. We should discuss this. That's a big decision, you can't just. Can't what? I turned to face them. Can't accept an incredible opportunity. Can't leave. Or can't make you look bad by succeeding when you spent years telling me I'd fail. Don't be dramatic, Mom said, but her voice wavered. I walked past them, climbed the stairs to my room, and pulled my suitcase from the closet. I didn't have much worth taking. Most of my clothes were old, my belongings minimal. I could pack my entire life in under an hour. As I folded my few good shirts, my phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. I know you recognized me. We need to talk before Monday. Come alone. I'll explain everything. My hands froze. Below the text was an address. Coffee shop downtown, open until midnight. And attached to the message was a photo. Old, faded, the colors washed out with time. It showed 2 children, maybe 8 or 9 years old, standing in front of a house I recognized. My grandmother's house, the one she'd sold before she died when I was 10. One child was clearly me, gap-toothed and grinning. The other was a boy with serious eyes and a thin scar on his jaw. A boy who looked exactly like a young Alexander Cross. I stared at that photo until my eyes burned. The coffee shop address glowed on my screen like a beacon, like a trap, like a promise I wasn't sure I wanted kept. My hands trembled as I screenshot the image and zoomed in, searching for proof that this was some elaborate hoax. But there was no denying it. That was me. That was my grandmother's garden with her prized rose bushes. And that was a boy I'd completely forgotten existed until this exact moment. Alex. Little Alex from the summer before 4th grade. The memories crashed back like a wave. My grandmother had been fostering him temporarily, some arrangement with social services I'd been too young to understand. We'd spent 3 months together that summer, building forts, catching fireflies, making elaborate plans for futures we'd sworn to face together. He'd been my best friend, my first crush, my partner in every childhood adventure. Then one day he was just gone. My grandmother said he'd been placed with a family, that it was better this way, that I should forget about him and move on. So I had. Children are resilient like that, able to lock away pain in boxes they never open again. Until Alexander Cross walked through my door and unlocked everything. I finished packing in a daze, my mind spinning. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't random. He'd come here knowing exactly who I was, who my family was, what they'd done to me my entire life. But why? And why now? I texted the number. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The response came instantly. Come to the back entrance. And Lauren, don't tell your family where you're going. I grabbed my suitcase and headed downstairs. My parents were in the kitchen, their voices low and urgent. I caught fragments as I descended. Could be our way back in. If we play this right. She owes us, after everything. I stopped in the doorway. They hadn't even noticed me yet, too busy plotting how to use my sudden good fortune to their advantage. Dad had his laptop open, already researching cross enterprises. Mom was on her phone, probably texting her society friends about the connection. I'm leaving, I said. They looked up, startled. Now, Mom stood. Lauren, wait, we should talk about this opportunity. We've been too hard on you, we see that now. We're proud of you, sweetheart. We always have been. The lie was so blatant it was almost funny. You threw my resume at my face 3 hours ago, I said quietly. You laughed at me. You've spent my entire life telling me I wasn't good enough, smart enough, pretty enough. And now that someone else sees value in me, suddenly you're proud. Don't be ungrateful, Dad said, his voice sharpening. We raised you, fed you, put a roof over your head. The bare minimum. You did the bare minimum while giving Madison everything. I'm done pretending that's love. I walked toward the door, but Mom rushed forward, grabbing my arm. Lauren, please. Don't leave like this. If you're angry, we can work through it. As a family. I looked at her hand on my arm, at her perfectly manicured nails digging into my skin, and something inside me finally snapped. We've never been a family, I said, pulling away. Not to me. I was just the mistake you tolerated while you poured everything into your perfect daughter. That's not fair, Mom said, but her eyes were wet. Crocodile tears. I'd seen them before, deployed strategically when she needed to manipulate someone into feeling guilty. Not this time. Goodbye, I said and walked out the door. The Uber I'd called was waiting. I threw my suitcase in the trunk and climbed in, watching my childhood home disappear in the rearview mirror. Felt nothing. No sadness, no relief. Just a strange, hollow emptiness where 24 years of dysfunction had finally burned themselves out. The coffee shop was in a quiet part of downtown, the kind of place that catered to artists and insomniacs. I pushed through the back entrance as instructed and found myself in a private room, warm and dimly lit. Alexander sat at a small table, still in his suit but with his jacket off, his tie loosened. He looked up when I entered, and the careful mask he'd worn at my parents' house cracked slightly. "You came," he said. "You didn't really give me a choice." I sat across from him, placing my phone with the photo between us. "Alex." He smiled, sad and small. "You remember." "I do now. You left. My grandmother said you got adopted, that you were happy." "I was adopted," he confirmed. "By Richard Cross. A man who saw potential in a foster kid and gave him everything. Education, opportunities, a name that opened doors." He paused. "But I never forgot that summer. Or you. Why didn't you reach out? Why wait until now?" Alexander leaned back, and I saw the weight he carried in the lines around his eyes. "Because I spent 15 years building something. Building myself into someone who could stand on equal ground with people like your parents. When I was 8, they came to visit your grandmother. Do you remember?" I shook my head. "They didn't even acknowledge me. I tried to introduce myself, excited because you told me all about your family, and your father looked right through me like I was furniture. Your mother pulled you away, said you shouldn't play with that kind of child." The words hit like ice water. I didn't remember, but I believed it completely. It was exactly something they would do. "You cried," Alexander continued softly. "You fought them, said I was your friend, that it didn't matter where I came from. Your grandmother had to take you inside while you screamed. That night, your parents demanded she remove me from the house. Said I was a bad influence. She tried to fight them, but they threatened to cut off contact, to keep you away if she didn't comply. So she sent you away. To protect me. To protect her relationship with you, yes. And I was placed with the Cross family 3 days later. It worked out for me. But I never forgot how your parents treated me. How they treated anyone they deemed beneath them. I processed this, the pieces clicking together. You've been watching me. Monitoring your career, yes. When I saw your name on applications, I'd make sure they got proper consideration. The 3 callbacks you mentioned. Those weren't accidents. I made calls, open doors. But I stayed in the background because I wanted you to succeed on your own merit. Until today. Until today, when I saw the Thornfield report and realized your own family was actively sabotaging you. Do you know your father called in a favor to have you rejected? He told them you were unstable, unreliable. He wanted you to fail. The room spun. What? I have the emails. The phone records. He's been doing it for months, Lauren. Every serious opportunity you got close to, he poisoned. He wanted to keep you dependent, keep you small. I couldn't breathe. All this time I'd thought I was failing on my own. That I wasn't good enough. When really, my own father had been destroying every chance I had. Why would he do that? Control. Money. Your grandmother left you a trust fund. Did you know that? I shook my head, numb. $3 million, accessible when you turn 25 or when you become financially independent, whichever comes first. Your parents are the executors. If you never succeed, never leave, they maintain control of those funds. They've been using them for years, I suspect. Madison's car, her apartment, their lifestyle. All funded by money that was meant for you. The betrayal was so massive I couldn't even process it. My own parents. My entire life had been a manipulation to steal from me. I have lawyers ready, Alexander said gently. We can file tomorrow. Get you access to what's yours. Investigate the misuse of funds. But I wanted to tell you first. Wanted you to decide how you want to handle this. I looked at him, really looked at him. The boy who'd been thrown away like trash had built himself into an empire. And he'd spent years watching over the girl who'd defended him, waiting for the right moment to return the favor. The job offer, I said. Is it real? Or is this all just revenge? The job is absolutely real. Your proposal was brilliant. I wasn't lying about that. He pulled out a contract, slid it across the table. But yes, there's an element of revenge. I want to see the looks on their faces when you become everything they said you couldn't be. When you walk into rooms they can't access and make decisions that affect their comfortable little world. He paused, his eyes meeting mine with fierce intensity. But more than that, Lauren, I want to give you what you gave me that summer. Someone who believes in you. Someone who sees you for who you really are. You defended a nobody foster kid against your own family. You were 8 years old and you chose kindness over comfort. That kind of person deserves everything. Tears were streaming down my face now, hot and unchecked. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are. You've survived 24 years with them. Everything else will be easy by comparison. He reached across the table, offering his hand. But you don't have to do it alone. Not anymore. I took his hand, felt the warmth of it, the solidity. An anchor in the storm. Okay, I said. Let's burn it all down. Alexander smiled, and it was beautiful and terrifying. I was hoping you'd say that. We worked until 2 a.m, going over contracts, legal strategies, evidence of my parents' fraud. Alexander's lawyers were thorough, relentless. By the time the sun rose, we had a case that would not only get me my inheritance but likely result in criminal charges for my parents. Are you sure? Alexander asked as we stood outside the coffee shop, dawn breaking pink and gold over the city. Once we file, there's no going back. Your family will be destroyed. I thought about every snide comment, every casual cruelty, every time they'd chosen Madison over me. I thought about my father sabotaging my interviews, my mother's fake tears, the way they'd plotted to use my success even as they'd engineered my failures. They destroyed themselves, I said. I'm just making sure everyone knows it. The penthouse apartment was everything Alexander had promised and more. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that probably cost more than my college tuition, a home office already set up with everything I'd need. I stood at the window, watching the city wake up, and felt something shift inside me. Not happiness, not yet, but possibility. The space to become whoever I was meant to be, free from the weight of their expectations and sabotage. My phone rang. Madison. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. What the hell did you do? She shrieked. Dad just got a call from lawyers. They're freezing accounts, demanding financial records. They're saying you're suing us. I am. You can't. Lauren, this is insane. Over what? Hurt feelings. We're your family. You stole from me. For years. You used money that was mine to fund your entire lifestyle. That's not. Dad said that money was for all of us, for the family. Dad lied. To you, to me, to everyone. And now he's going to face the consequences. Please, Madison's voice cracked, real fear creeping in. Please don't do this. I'll talk to them, we can fix this, we can be better. It's too late for that. Hung up. Blocked the number. Did the same with my parents when they called 30 seconds later. By Monday the news had broken. The lawsuits were public record, and the media loved a good scandal involving wealthy families and stolen inheritances. My parents' friends abandoned them overnight. Madison's job offer was quietly rescinded when Turner and Associates realized the family name was now toxic. I felt nothing watching their world collapse. Maybe that made me cold. Maybe that made me cruel. Or maybe it just made me free. My first day at Cross Enterprises was surreal. Alexander introduced me to my team, and they looked at me with respect, with curiosity, with none of the dismissiveness I'd endured my entire life. My ideas were heard. My proposals were valued. I was good at this, I realized. I'd always been good at this. I just needed someone to give me a chance to prove it. 3 months later, I won my first major client pitch. 6 months after that, my division's profits had increased by 40%. Alexander was right. I was good at this. Better than good. A year to the day after Alexander had walked into my parents' house, I stood in a courtroom and watched them sentenced for fraud and embezzlement. My mother cried. My father stared straight ahead, his face carved from stone. Madison sat in the gallery, looking small and lost without their protection. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Alexander, standing beside me like he'd promised. "How do you feel?" he asked quietly. I considered the question. How did I feel, watching the people who'd raised me led away in handcuffs? Watching everything they'd built crumble because of their own greed. "Like I can finally breathe," I said. We walked out of the courthouse together, into the bright afternoon sun. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, but Alexander's security kept them at bay. We climbed into the car, and as it pulled away, I looked back one last time at the courthouse steps. Madison was standing there, alone, watching me leave. For just a moment I felt something that might have been pity. Then I turned away and didn't look back. "Where to?" the driver asked. Alexander looked at me, a question in his eyes. "Forward," I said. "Just forward." And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what that meant. The little girl who'd defended a foster kid, who'd been punished for kindness and broken down for having dreams, was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who'd learned that the best revenge wasn't cruelty. It was success. It was standing in the ashes of their expectations and building something they could never touch. It was finally becoming free.